We're doing sometimes.
And we're live.
Welcome to From the Ground Up podcast. Thank you all so much for being here. So, a little bit to get out of the way, Theportcitypythons.com. We have shirts available as well as some supplies. So, if you would go check it out, that would be sweet. Other than that, what other stuff we have? We have a couple king snakes still for sale. So, if you guys are interested, we are getting out of our king snake projects, and we have some little female albinos, which are super sweet. So they're like pink and yellow, man. What can go better? It's better than that. Even that one strafe one is kind of purpley looking.
True.
They're cool looking. It's just, and they eat perfectly fine.
Yeah, just we're changing it up a little bit. So
we are just
we don't have
giving
them.
up.
We don't have them available on the website, but they're on Morph Market and Fauna. And you can always message us on Instagram if you're interested.
Yeah. And I think I have one they haven't posted up yet. So if you want to snag it, go for it.
Secret stash.
Boom.
Other than that, Carpet Fest next weekend. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Warminster, PA.
The OG Carpet Fest.
I don't want to take too long on it because we talk about it a lot. But yeah, it's next weekend. Anyone is welcome.
And I guess you should hit up Eric to see what you should bring.
Yes.
What are we bringing?
We don't know. We're going to pick off the list. Eric put a list in the Northeast Carpet Fest group, and we're just going to pick off the list.
All right. And Travis Wyman will have pies.
Yeah, that's the best part.
In case you're worried.
Okay. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Today's guest is a former AZA zookeeper. He has a YouTube channel called ReptileMountain TV. He keeps a whole lot of skinks as well as Antaresia, a bunch of different species. So it'll be awesome talking to him. TC Houston, welcome to the show. And could you introduce us to a little bit of what you do?
Hi. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
I breed skinks and other reptiles. I just absolutely love them. It's an unhealthy passion. It's healthy and unhealthy, I'd say. I have a tendency to obsess and lose sleep, but that's okay. We're gonna go past that and just drink that off real quick. And so I like blue tongue skinks, and that's my big thing that I breed right now. And I recently started a channel called ReptileMountain TV to complement my Reptile Mountain business, which I thought was a hobby until you can't write off hobbies on taxes anymore. So it's a business now. And thank you, Uncle Sam. And now I love it because these animals are really, really great pets for a straight up first time reptiler all the way up to a pro herper. They really are fun little critters. So that's what I've been doing.
So what first got you into reptiles?
Oh, well, I was in Boulder, Colorado when I was 5 years old, and there was a hippie dude in the 80s, so 80s hippie.
They're all hippie dudes in Boulder, by the way. There's no regular people.
None.
I lived there. I was the only one. Just for a second, though. Yeah, and then I moved to Denver because I learned.
My gosh. You learned Planet Boulder. So yeah, out there on Pearl Street Mall, when I was 5, my mom was shopping, and I saw a dude carrying a full-blown BCI. I have no idea what it was, but big old boa. And I thought for a second, wait a minute, you can have these things outside of the zoo, because that's all I'd known. And I was like, Mom, I want one, like now. And of course, she gave me a no and got me a toy snake. But about a year later, my dad found a garter snake in our little wildlife area near our house, and he let me keep it, and that's what started it. I love the idea of having animals that are unique. I love dogs, don't get me wrong, and cats can be cool too. However, I found that unique animals that are generally quiet. I'm not a huge bird. I think birds are awesome in the wild and like in other people's houses, but
agreed.
Yeah, I don't do with the noise. I need solitude, and so these little mute critters are great. And that's what started it. I have had reptiles ever since. So since the mid 80s.
As far as zookeeping goes, like, did you know that you want to work with reptiles? I mean, were you working with reptiles, or did you work with other animals as well?
As a zookeeper, like, yeah, reptiles. Well, one, it's way easier to get experience and work with reptiles in captivity than it is like elephants or anything. And so I loved everything exotic. And my mom and dad took me to the San Diego Zoo often. And I used to have the little zookeeper outfit. I can't fit in it anymore, but I would wear it anyway, just because it was, the old khaki thing that you can buy. Um, yeah, I put that on, and like it was it was perfect. It was what I wanted. And so I'd wanted to be a zookeeper the rest of my life when I was a little kid, and all the way into actually becoming one, which was awesome. And I did in college, when I was in zoology. My professor, he comes up to me and says, "Hey, you have boatloads of experience in reptiles, but there are only a few reptile positions at zoos. And sometimes to get into a zoo, you needed to take something that's not necessarily what you want, and then it's easier to transfer from once you have experience in. You have to crack
Just to
that
get your
code."
foot in the door.
Exactly. And so he said, "You need to broaden your horizons, dude, because you got reptiles covered." And I said, "Okay." So I did an internship in large mammals, and with a focus on Asian elephants and white rhinos. But I did get to do an intern or a rotation with sea lions, hoofstock, and carnivores. So it was so fun. And honestly, if I couldn't keep reptiles, if I didn't get a job as a reptile keeper, I would have definitely sought one as an elephant keeper. Even though there's mounds of crap, those animals are awesome.
Literally.
Oh, dude, 90 pounds. I believe it was like 90 pounds per animal per day.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It was unreal. There was a truck that would back up to the barn, and then each keeper got a wheelbarrow, and you'd be out there with a rake and a shovel filling the wheelbarrow, and it was at least 3 wheelbarrows per each elephant, and then you'd get a running start with this wheelbarrow towards this truck that was backed up, and you just run, 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 dump,
No.
and then the poop that's like these big ass balls of poo would just pile up, and I had to change at the time. My girlfriend, she made me change in the garage when I came home because I just stank so good. It was great. My first day, I got to tell you this.
Yeah,
This will give you a crazy story. My first day on elephant duty, the big burly lead keeper, he comes up to me and says, "All right, so we're going to do some sperm collection with the bull." I said, "Oh, okay. All right, what's that entail?" And he goes, "Do you want to pump or catch?" I'm like, "I don't know.
I don't know what.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know." So he hands me this stick that looks like a butterfly net with a bread bag at the end of it, like a you can catch stuff with it.
Uh-huh.
I was like, "All right." He says, "You hold this. You'll know what to do when you see what's going on." So he brings our big bull in, and they chain each leg up inside this stall. And then he gets a ladder and he puts on a glove up to his armpit. And he just takes a whole scoop of petroleum jelly and lathers it up, all up and down his arm. And I'm sitting there thinking, what in the hell is he about to do? And he climbs up the ladder, he moves the tail to the side, he makes a fist, and he just inside the elephant's rear. And my eyes are like, oh my God, he just accosted this elephant. I'm trying to think, should I call somebody? Is this what he's supposed to be doing? And then he starts doing like a pumping.
Oh.
He is, yeah, this is
He's
really
making
happening.
it happen.
This is my first day. I can't believe what's happening. And he's doing this, and all of a sudden the elephant starts to, and from below, this like freaking gigantic trunk comes out. And it ain't his trunk. And again, my eyes are like, dude, that's awesome. You gotta appreciate some beauty of nature, I guess.
Cojones.
Oh my gosh. And it's like movable. So seriously, so he's the elephant, and so Wes is pumping, and the elephant's doing this, and I finally realized what my little stick with my bag is.
Catch.
And
Aren't you glad you chose catch?
Kind of. So I'm trying to get under there, like, and it's wiggling like this, and Wes is pumping, and the elephant's huffing, and then da-da, and part of it, I catch part of it, and the rest of it flings all over the place, all over me, all over. Oh, and I came back for another day. It was unbelievable. That was my first day an elephant. So when I applied for jobs, I thought reptiles would be less icky, if you will. But I love elephant keepers. I think they're awesome. So sorry, I had to tell you that. You might have to edit.
I mean, I don't know if I would come back for day 2.
I have so many anatomy questions, different type of. I don't know.
It was impressive. That's all I could say. And that was my first day. So I came back. I was like, well, I at least know that I don't want to pump or catch next time. I need to be sick.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So James Lewis in the chat asked, what zoo did you work for?
I interned in Tulsa, and I worked for Houston down in Texas. And then I also interned for 5 minutes at Oklahoma City when I got the job down in Houston. So
sweet.
Yeah.
So how did you go from catching elephant sperm to reptiles exactly?
Yeah, and how long did you have to do that for?
So it was a 6-month internship or something like that in Tulsa, and then moved over to Oklahoma City, and I was doing more elephants. Actually, I thought I'd fallen in love with elephants. If that didn't seal the deal for you,
Once you take a load, I swear it's like nothing else.
It's just like you can't get enough, right? I had always had the heart for reptiles. That was my passion, my true desire. And so I'd thrown out applications. Zoo Atlanta, Oklahoma City was hiring a reptile keeper, and Houston was. And Zoo Atlanta was like, you're a joke. I'm not talking to you. And then Oklahoma City, I don't know. I have no idea what they just, I never heard from them, but I did hear from OKC and Houston. But I heard from OKC as I was moving to Houston because I'd got the job. So, and I was living in Oklahoma, so I was like, oh, kind of wanted to do that one, but was very happy with Houston and moved down there. Part of it is like getting a job there was a blessing. Part of it was the curator also went to my alma mater, so I think he had a soft spot for that. He wanted a young guy that could be coached, and so that was kind of how I lucked into it. With anything, it's really like perfect fit, not necessarily perfect formula.
Right. It's half, the people you work with and what you're doing.
Exactly. And so I was super, super thrilled to get that position. And boy, I learned a
Uh-oh.
How'd that happen?
My
We're
dad
doing
called.
so good.
Sorry.
No problem.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, good. My dad called. So my little boy he's under the weather, so all the grandparents worry,
Aww. Carly was asking, out of the 3 that you worked at / interned at, what was your favorite?
They all just had different qualities, I loved Tulsa for it. It was a small zoo, and I really cut my teeth there. It was amazing. Oklahoma City is a phenomenal zoo, and Houston, it has so much to offer. So that's really a hard question. I say, as far as reptiles go, I loved Houston because those are the ones I got to work with. But Tulsa and Oklahoma City have awesome reptile departments. So it was hard to say, So,
What kind of animals were you working with? Were you working with hots as well in Houston?
Oh yeah. That was my main thing. I loved hots, and still do. Still love venomous. Big time fan of the crotalus and the rattlesnakes and vipers and like obscure little dinky things. I had the king cobras in my section. I had a couple of our baby forest cobras in the back. I had like 50. That's an exaggeration, but it felt like 50 Western Diamondbacks. One of the things that happens is you get an animal and it doesn't do well on display. and then you have to keep it. And then you try another one, and it doesn't do well on display, and you have to keep it. And Western Diamondbacks aren't always the best, most calm display animals. Some can be. And so we kept just going through them, and they all piled up in my section in the behind the scenes. And so I had like Western Diamondbacks and Dumeral's boas, like for miles
Really?
in the back. It was just all Dumeral's boas and Western Diamondbacks. A few forest cobras, and I had the native U.S. stuff, so that was cool. Loved that stuff. And then I had the king cobra, a nice 10-foot female. She was awesome.
Did you have mambas as well?
We did have mambas. I didn't work with the mambas. We had 2 black mambas, and then, well, you work with everything. Like, I don't know how it is at other zoos, but our zoo, we had like sections, and each keeper has their little assigned section. But when that keeper's off, and an animal takes a crap in the water, obviously it has to be serviced when that person's off. So you have people rotating through, and so we worked with mambas, forest cobras, red spitters, a bunch of them, Mexican rattlesnakes and neotropical rattlesnakes. We had gaboon vipers, rhino vipers. We had the rhino vipers. We didn't even know they were a pair, and they were a pair and gave birth. And so one day the 2 was way more than that. That was exciting. And I'm not sure if I'm imagining this or if it really happened, but I believe that there was a little tiny hole in the side of that rhino viper enclosure in the back door that was big enough for babies to get through and not adults. And I think that the keeper, when he came in the first day after they'd been born, he found a baby on the floor. Now that could be, honestly, like, that's what is memory in my head, but I could be completely making that up because I don't know why. I don't know. But I remember distinctly when I covered his section, like reaching around corners and everything for a long time, being scared. So I think it might have been true. Like, just kind of like nervous about, you don't want to reach in, grab a bucket and find a bitis in your finger.
Yeah, that's a slight oopsie. I mean, but I guess if you don't expect the babies, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
We had no clue, and they're fat little snakes, so it's not like it showed any signs. But that was before I got there. But they were all babies when I arrived. I had a few in my section, I think, too. I got the leftovers. The new guy gets the leftovers. They're like, we don't want this. Here you go.
What kind of sucks is that, like, I would expect it kind of sucks that you end up with a stockpile of like very common snakes, like the Atrox or something, like commonly bred, and like, why can't you have like 50 tuataras or something in the back? Or
that's kind of how I kind of bellyached a little bit, but I mean, who am I to speak? Now, I was young and pretty arrogant at the time, still maybe that way, but older now and arrogant. I don't know. But I was definitely young and arrogant, and I walked in and I was like, I think I want that in my section and that. I don't want that. I'll take that. 2 of those. Like, who am I? Been there 5 minutes. But yeah, it was kind of disheartening right off the bat. They're like, yeah, here you go, Dumeral's boas. And those are great animals, don't get me wrong. But when you have like an entire wall of them, and they're not handled, so they're all like real pissy, and just it was monotonous.
yeah, and it's also like you spent your life dreaming of being a zookeeper, and that's kind of an animal that you could see at a reptile show, and like it's.
That's so true. I mean, I did get to. I mean, at the same time, like, you're cleaning Dumeral's boas, and like right behind you is Komodo dragons. So it's not like it's so bad.
It was me.
Right. It was good though. It was good, and I didn't get to touch frogs. Anything amphibian was 100% our amphibian guy, and he's an awesome dude. And it's probably better that he touched and did everything with those guys. But they were we had some awesome stuff. He was trying to breed the Atelopus zedekai, the penny mini and golden frog or golden toad, the super rare endangered little critter. and we had this elaborate setup, and he was trying to make a river in our back with like different tanks, like with pushing water to different tanks all the way through. It was pretty awesome, and I think he was successful. So
Wow.
yeah.
So we were kind of talking about so our friend James in the chat, he used to work at a zoo, and he was kind of talking about how zookeepers, I mean, there's really a time limit because you just aren't getting paid a lot, and there's only so much time as an adult you can get paid like $12 an hour. So I mean, like, how how did that work for you? Like, how did you transition out of it? And where was your breaking point? You know,
I had some. Sometimes you run into personality conflicts with some people. I ran into personality conflict, and I realized I could apply for another zoo job and move around, but it's going to be very similar without any like advancement in lifestyle. Let's put it that way. Ramen noodles only go so far, and I realized that way faster than I thought I would. And so it took less than a year before I was like, wow, I could have a collection almost exactly like what I have at the zoo. I could be in charge of it, like fully. And I could do something else and maybe eat a steak dinner on Friday every once in a while. And that like little light bulb went off, and I decided, I was like, I think I'm going to go back to school. My intent was to go back and get a master's and eventually a doctorate in zoology. And so that was my thought. I was like, I'll just go get more schooling and get, maybe be a professor somewhere and play with reptiles and get paid a little bit more. Oh, it was brutal. Yeah, it took about a year, and I was like, yep, check, please. I'm done.
So did you end up going back to school?
I did go back to school, and I got a master's and doctorate, but not in zoology. So life turned for me. So it changed a little bit. But yeah, I did go back to school, full intent on a zoology master's, and then switched it and still love reptiles all the way through. Love them. And I was so glad. If they paid like real money to be a zookeeper, considering you pretty much have to have a bachelor's nowadays, minimum, I would so do it. But they don't pay real money. Like the same amount of money as a kid at Chick-fil-A.
Right. I'm sure even the big zoos, it's the same case.
It's so sad that they know that so many people share this dream of working with animals for a living that they're able to take advantage of that and pay you almost nothing. And then I guess the facilities don't have much money to spare in some senses too, so I can feel them on that. But
yeah, it's a tough gig because you want all the money to go to your animals, to those animals. You want it to go to conservation. You want it to be a great experience for the people that go to the zoo. So they leave, wowed and like fully in love with animals and on track for conservation. And at the same time, you actually want to make a living, and in a way that is doable. I don't know how the keepers here in Colorado manage now that the prices have gone up in housing market and stuff. I'm sure they're stacked like 6 deep in a 1-bedroom. I don't know. It's brutal. Yeah, if they did, and I watched how long it took a supervisor or a keeper to go to supervisor and a supervisor to go to curator.
Way too long.
Yeah, I would be 50 before I got a chance at supervisor. And yeah.
Respect to those guys who stick it out, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Sugar mama.
Oh, absolutely. There's a few zoos out there that got really lucky. They were city, and so they paid really well. And then the city sold it to private, and so they retired the keepers, and so they get a pension, and then they get a private salary. So they're double dipping, and that would be the way to go. Find your way into that.
Get lucky.
Yeah, get lucky.
So, what did you first start keeping on the private side, and why?
I liked chameleons. I was head over heels for the Jacksons. Those little horns. I watched Jurassic Park in the theater probably 12 times. and they looked like little dinosaurs. So I had to have a Jackson's chameleon, and so I started keeping those. My dad bought me a ball python. I still have. He's 29, almost 30
Wow.
now. He's an old boy, um, and I mean, I loved that snake. Still love that snake, and I had him, and then got into boas, and then dart frogs. I just loved anything. Basically, if you could buy it from the pet store, but you could find it at the zoo, that was something I wanted to keep as a kid, because I wanted to recreate the zoo, because I want to be a zookeeper so doggone bad. So
Okay, so I have to ask every past zookeeper this. Does working at a zoo kind of ruin going to new zoos for you? Or
it puts a perspective on observing the cages and stuff like that, because you can be like, I can see that keeper's either on vacation, or maybe they don't service that one as much as they should, or they aren't looking in that spot. But boy, that's kind of old skin or old poo or whatever. You look at it differently, that's for sure. Just like if with anything, like people who are in the military and then watch army movies, and you're like, yeah, that didn't happen. That's not how it works. Or you can't stand when someone's wearing the uniform wrong, and it like flaps up, and I'm like, oh, fix your collar, please. It hurts me.
yep,
But
I get
Yeah,
that too. I
don't get
that
your
too.
patches fucked up. That's one.
Oh,
He
God.
talks about that all the time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then like you got your anyway, it's the same. You go in and you see things, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then sometimes you're like, man, I wish that was at my zoo, because I would totally want to work with that, especially tuatars. Like, super jealous of Dallas. Super jealous.
Yeah, that's the one thing that like we went to Dallas Zoo, and I was like, whoa, I didn't even know that was an option. Now that like that's fucking cool.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to hold it.
I just want to touch it.
Yes.
It's
Ancient relic.
You're a unknown being that I don't know. It's so unaccessible and it's so unimaginable in so many ways, man.
It's like a lizard. It's a reptile. It's not even. It's a reptile unicorn. I tell you, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our biggest thing when we go to zoos, at least that you point out a lot, is the taxonomy.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's one of the.
Well, yeah, usually like the educational material sometimes are a little, they don't update them or something like that. It can be a little weird.
Yeah. At our zoo we had two different. Or at Houston Zoo they had a graphics department and then the herp department. And the herp department used to be the ones who got to write the stuff. And then as the individuals and directors changed and things flipped around, sometimes it was the graphics department who wrote the stuff, and sometimes it was the herpers that got to write it. And so it varied on whether or not the animal was correctly named or not. And
that's why a zoo should hire me to design all their graphics. I don't know what
both,
they're doing.
a herp.
I didn't know that was an option. I
Person.
know there was a graphics department, or else I would have been looking for jobs way before this.
Oh yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah, I'm sure they do web design, like all that stuff now. So you should totally
That'd be cool.
hit them up.
So, as far as private keeping, you were into chameleons. So, did you end up getting some Jacksons?
I got Jacksons. Well, first I got Werner's chameleons, because they were so new. They called them dwarf Jacksons, which is not true. And so I got Werner's chameleons, and then I got ReptileMountain chameleons, which are Camellia foilet warni, which is similar, also a three-horn. And of course, those are instantly imported and disastrously parasitized, and the husbandry back then was purely out of books. And you're trying to take what's meant for a Jackson's chameleon from from the little small pamphlets you can get and convert it into a Werner's chameleon, and then they would die, and they would just die. They just kept dying. Well, I was getting wild caught rare montane chameleons that hadn't been treated, and I was 15 years old, and nobody knew anything about them. And finally, I got real, yellow-crested Jacksons, the Jacksoni Xantholophus, and that's when it started to like work for me, and I finally bred them, and that was exciting. I remember that was the biggest day of my world when there was little tiny baby Jacksons in there. I was like, "Ah!" That was it. I was hooked. I was like, this is it forever. So.
And it seems like you do take some of that like zoo experience, at least what you have now behind you, and what I've seen on your YouTube channel. It's like you try to be as naturalistic and as possible.
I do. I try. There's as long as it matters to the animal from the animal's welfare perspective. Like, it's not like they have a mental, emotional connection to whether or not they're like, I love my plant. No, that's not what they're doing. But at the same time, I want to be able to make sure that they can experience the tactile and visual, I guess, experiences that they would have as much as they can in the wild, without just putting them back in the wild. I mean, obviously, we can do that and be like, hey, have fun with the parasites and the predators and starvation and famine and volcanoes and death, and have good time with that, buddy.
Yeah, it's like captivity is an upgrade for all of them, pretty much, no matter what. But
pretty much, I mean, it varies between certain keepers, of course, on whether that's an upgrade or a death sentence. But I'm hoping that mine have an upgrade. They get perpetual vet care. If they get sick, if they have a boo boo in the wild, they just deal with it. They get boo boo here, I take them to the doc.
Right.
So that's good.
So how'd you first get interested in skinks in particular?
I was thinking. Well, I was keeping a lot of reptiles, and it was a hobby, and it was a distracting hobby that my wife was not particularly thrilled about the level of time that I was obsessing over these scaly creatures in the basement. And so I mentioned, I was like, I could breed these and make some money. And she's like, really? Well, do that and make it worthwhile. And so
I used the same method. That's great.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, she was like, absolutely. Like, she was not into it at all. Like, there's money in it. I mean, wink, wink. Maybe one day. I don't know, ever.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, she says, yes, you could, like, let's do this commercially. And for me, there's never been a change in welfare, whether these are all pets that I'm passionate about or, livestock that I'm using as breeders. It doesn't change the care level, but we upped it for commercialization, and I thought I need something. I personally wanted to do Gila monsters because they're the best pet. Excuse me, they're the best pet ever, except for that like pesky venomous part. And that little stinky little bite will just kick your booty. And not that I've been bit, and fortunately, I don't plan to. Yeah, you can't really confident. There's this little liability thing, and I just didn't want to do that on a major scale and try and make some, money for it. And so I thought I got to do something. Snakes have been done. No offense to anyone who's done snakes. Snakes are awesome, but they have been really well done. And so are lizards. However, lizards are more, I don't know, welcome in homes where maybe the parents or one of the partners in the relationship isn't so keen on reptiles because it's got legs, it's got a little bit more human characteristics. Not that it's at all a human at all, but it's more dog-like than a snake. And so I thought, if I could get something that would have maybe legs, that's a start because that helps with all the snake haters out there. Because I don't want to spend all my time trying to convince people that snakes aren't bad, even though they're wonderful, and I love people who do that because I'm grateful for that because we need that. It was just like I need a reptile. I need a reptile that's something that people can actually be okay with and not freak out. So I've got friends that like hate snakes, right? They come over and they're okay seeing the lizards, but they don't want to see any snakes. They're like, if it's a snake, I don't want to see it, right? And of course, naturally, I take a snake out because they're already in my house. You came over, it's your fault. And so, but in general, if I'm going to sell something, I want something that isn't so scary, oogie boogie, eat your eyes, and all that. And so I thought lizards would be good. Blue tongues happen to be one of the easiest. They eat dog food. They're a decent size, but they're not so small. They're not too big. They're not like monitor level. You don't have to feed them a single live moving anything. So, moms that don't want to deal with bugs and families that don't want to have, frozen rats next to their frozen pizzas in the freezer. So I was like, skinks, canned wet food, easy. We can do this. And I think it would be a good thing. So I went for it. Turns out it was okay. So
well, yeah, you think about how many people their first pet nowadays seems to be so often parents are easily swayed to get like a bearded dragon. But to be honest, bearded dragons are kind of hard to keep in a sense. And also they're usually feeding on insects as well.
Like it blows my mind. Like I think beardies are great. I would personally probably never own one. Because I don't like
beardy hater over here.
Oh. No, I love bearded dragons. Go watch my channel. Just kidding. I'm not like it's not like something I love, but yeah, it drives. I don't understand. Like there's constant salads and little veggies that you got to do, and there's constant insects, and then the UVB requirement for them. Like it's a straight up requirement. You can't supplement your diet and have a healthy beardy really. It's just intense. And then there's the hydration issue, and people end up with impacted animals because they don't have them on. And then everyone's got them on tile, and I can't wait to go to the outback and walk on all the tile out there. I mean, what country tiles their entire wilderness? It's awesome.
They live on green turf. That green.
Oh man, yeah, AstroTurf stuff. And so yeah, I don't know about beardies. I know people, but they breed really easy. Skinks are a little harder to breed. They're a little rougher. Not to get to breed, but there's some violence involved. There's some rough critters. They go at it. Yeah. Yeah, this past season we had a breeder. She had a female get her arm ripped off. Like off.
So was he going for her neck and just hit the arm, or?
Hit the arm, and then, in his infinite wisdom, he's like, I should do a death roll instead of let go. And he did, and poof, off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I would have probably thrown up. I threw up when I caught a glass lizard once, and it broke in my hand. Like I thought it was a snake, and I thought the snake had exploded in my hand. Like, and for some reason that freaked me out, and I just puked all over everywhere outside. My fellow herping buddies were never gonna let that down. No, I just brought it up. No, why did I do that?
I mean, I do it too. It's hard for me to have this conversation right now. Joe did not let me know it's going to be about legged creatures. It's funny. I'm opposite of everyone else.
You like snakes?
She really hates snakes.
I'm team. I hate anything with legs. Except for obviously the dogs and whatever. But like the reptiles with legs, skinks freak me out. His niece has one, and it's like anytime it comes out, I don't know. They freak me out. They're too like, I don't know. I have no rational reason behind it. No rational reason.
Well, I'm glad you're in the minority because my business would be better.
No, it's a good thing. I 100%. Every time I talk about it on a podcast, everyone's like, no, like everyone else is team legs. I just,
I could see some of those the ones that I wear, the skink or skinkella. There's a little tiny skink that has like teeny tiny legs. It literally looks like a snake with paddles, and that one kind of weirds me out because I always feel like it's just like little worms protruding out of its body. Like, what are you doing? Just get rid of them. Evolution took care of that.
Right?
So when I kept skinks, I don't know what I didn't know like the dog food thing. So like I don't know if I was keeping some like hipster skink, but because like they used to back in the day, you take a bunch of greens, you take like some fucking raw meat, you take some calcium, weird stuff.
Ew.
Like I used to put full eggs in there with eggshells and stuff for calcium, and do this whole greens mix
That's a
as well
lot.
as some like raw ground turkey sometimes and some different things and blend it all up and then give it to the skink. It sounds like dog food's easier. What's better for them? I mean, like, do you do dog food yourself? Is there a certain level of quality that the food needs to be?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's what they used to do, is what you did. And that was the pretty standard. And a lot of people, there's still those hipsters out there that they have to have, they think it's healthier and fresh. And I'm like, there's
Organic,
evidence
free range skink.
why. Yes, free range skinks. And what happened was they started, some folks were like, this is pretty much, this is dog food that I've just made. Why don't I try this? And because it comes in a can, and this is like a pain in the ass. And so they tried that, and then it actually, the whole group of animals improved. Because it's formulated, it's got a lot better balance of nutrition in there. Like a lot of folks are like, 3 eggs today and a dab of, it's like they're winging it. Whereas this is like really formulated with right calcium phosphorus ratios and the amounts of different amino acids and stuff in it for a dog. And a dog is like a pseudo omnivore. And so it worked really well for them, and it just started rocketing. I use several different brands. The things that I require when I look at a brand is I want to look for, the first few ingredients are like real meats. I also will look for like turkey meal or chicken meal. Believe it or not, they're like ground beak and stuff is really good for critters that eat carrion and eat whole prey items. So I'll do that. I look for veggies in the dog food, whole veggies. That's important. So when they're putting in zucchini, when they're putting in, um, I don't know, zucchini, spinach. Spinach isn't really that great, but squash is another one that's really good. If they've got those kinds of items in the food, sometimes carrots. Um, it's the equivalent of the greens that you're mushing up, uh, and it works really well. And the animals are actually, they live longer. They are more vigorous. They have typically larger litters, and they are overall healthier on dog food compared to the homebrew, is what I call it. It's crazy. I know I sound like a nut or a lazy person, because someone will be like, "Well, I take all the work." Well, great. You're still starving your animal to death in certain places. So try the whole complete package.
Yeah, it just seems a lot easier, to be honest. Let's just go there. I mean, if the animals are doing well and it's 10 times easier, and it can enable anyone to keep that animal. So if you were at a reptile show before, you were like, all right, so you're gonna do this. You're gonna take this spring mix, you're gonna put eggs in there, you're gonna do it and blend it all up and all that shit.
You're going to turn half the people off just
Yeah.
saying that. But if
Once
you're,
you say just dog food, they're like,
whoa, okay, I can do that.
Right. And I don't feel guilty about it. Like if it was like inferior and like animals on homebrew were living into their 30s and dog food animals were living into their like teens, I'd obviously stop it. But it's the complete opposite. I had like there I'm not aware at this point of any animal that has lived past 25 on homebrew. But there's multiple animals over 25 and into 30s on dog food. So it's like crazy, but it works. So it's like, yeah, here, can of Alpo, not Alpo actually, can of Nature's Logic turkey and have a good time.
Yeah. And now Darren in the chat, he asked, what do skinks eat in the wild? Because I don't really know either.
They're opportun. After a few beers, let me see if I can say this. Opportunistic, omnivore generalists. I said it. I think I said it. Did you hear it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Got it.
Don't know what it means, but we heard it.
Opportunistic omnivore generalists. So basically, anything they can eat, they will eat. Typically in the wet season, snails are plentiful, so they're going to eat a lot of snails. They have really strong jaws for crushing those shells, and it gets them some good calcium. They're going to eat carrion. So you see a lot of dead kangaroos out there in Australia, and they're going to be munching on that. They're going to eat the fur. They're going to come across, if there's a rodent's nest, they're going to come across and munch on all those little baby rodents. If there's birds and eggs on the ground, they're going to munch on that. Down flowers, they'll eat vegetation and berries. They prefer protein items that are animal based. So anything that's an invertebrate, they're going to eat insects and those sorts of things. But then they're going to find fruits too. If they can find any sort of natural wild fruits, they're going to eat that. Yeah, so that's kind of what they eat in the wild.
So their body can break down pretty much anything.
Yeah, absolutely. They have quite a range of abilities for digestion. It's pretty awesome. They're little tanks. You could just feed them whatever. Well, not whatever. Don't take that.
Right. But they have the
I worry about people out there.
Yeah. Some people take things too literally. But.
Right. Yes, they do. But they can chow down, and in fact they'll eat other animals' feces. Australians will be sitting in their backyard, watch a blue tongue walk up and eat their dog's turd, and like, yummy.
Dog food, just
dog food,
pre-digested for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, literally.
They'll even see them eat dog food out of their dog's bowls. So they'll like, if their dog's bowl's outside, they'll be like, "There's a blue tongue lizard snatching your food, dude."
There you go. Wild skinks prefer it.
That's right. It's crazy.
So general keeping otherwise, it looks like obviously you have some cages behind you. I also saw you have some crazy awesome like tub type setups. Can you talk about basically both alternatives?
Yeah, so the stuff behind me is just a kind of a freedom breeder, or not freedom breeder, 40 breeder. Just looking at a freedom breeder, as I said. A 40 breeder, Exoterra, and that's pretty much the absolute smallest you really want to go, so they can thermoregulate and stuff like that. And then I got these tubs. The racks that I have are kind of inspired by Ty Park. I was watching Camp Kennan. Kennan Harkin was at Ty Park's place showing off his blue tongues, and Ty Park had these racks similar. And that, like, the second I was like taking screenshots, I was like, "Oh, this is happening right now." So I wanted it as big as possible, but I wanted overhead lighting simply because I want a diurnal species to have some sort of lighting, and that was just important to me. And so I kind of designed it so that it would fit through my doorways. Ties are like a built-in at his little facility, or not a little facility, it's a big at his big facility. And so I thought, well, I need something that's going to go through doorways. And so I built these little individual towers that are 3 tall because I'm short. Other people could do totally do 4, but I did 3. And I kind of like them because it gives enough space for the animal. They're 3 foot by 2 foot, so they're more floor space than a 40 breeder. But I get overhead heat with them. I can offer UV if I want. It's a nice little setup. Also a little bit more costly as far as electricity, because overhead lighting is, you're heating the entire space as opposed to the underground or ground heat where it's just that tape and it just needs to get to the belly of the animal. So yeah.
So that's something that is usually, people don't even consider giving their skinks light. So, like, what is your preference? Obviously you prefer that, but what's the details behind it?
Even my racks that are just D70 racks, even for my snakes, I try to find a way to get light to them through like bouncing it off the wall. And so it's not a direct in their face light, but it's a kind of a passive version of light, and it's on a cycle. Simply because I feel like nature has light. There's daytime and nighttime, and I want my animals to experience as much of nature as they can within reason. And so, if I can provide light by throwing a light on top, I will. If I can provide, tactile experience of moving through branches, I'll throw branches in there. It's not some like noble cause of an emotional connection with the animal or anything. It's literally just to give them as much experience as they can. I know that enrichment is a key word these days, and if you don't use your brain, it doesn't work, it atrophies. And so I figure they can experience whatever they can experience, and I want to give them as best they can without getting ridiculous with it. So obviously, large collection, you can't just target train every animal to jump through hoops and free willy. So.
And do you actually prefer the overhead heating? Is there any advantage over belly?
People say that there is, because they're like, well, the sun's from the sky. Yes, it is. It sure is, honey. A lot of skinks won't actually bask in direct sunlight. Yes, they will sometimes, but not always. Sometimes after the sun's heated something, they'll move out over a warm rock that's been heated but is actually shaded, and they will thermoregulate that way. And so belly heat works just as well, or ground heat. I like the overhead lighting because it's easy because I can light them up and use heat at the same time. If I could use belly heat and save some cash because it's costing a butt ton to do this, I would. But I'm already pot committed with doing it all, so it's too late for now. But maybe in the future, if I could wave a wand and do something, I could get ground heat with maybe a light that's just UV. And I think that's probably what I would do, because it seems that my animals that are in racks, like babies and stuff that are grow outs, they do better on belly heat, to be honest with you. But I don't have any actual evidence or data research to back that up. It's just an observation. So.
And temperatures, what exactly are you looking for temperature-wise?
So blue tongues really do well, or the Australian stuff does well at 95 and above for a warm side. I try to shoot for a hot spot or a hot basking area. Someone's going to get bent about spot. It has to be big enough for the animal. For around 100 to 102, it can go up to 120, to be honest with you. They won't utilize it all very long, but they will bask in that space. But I would recommend 100 to 102, 105. Mine seem to come up and enjoy that, and then mosey on down into the cooler side. And then the cool side, I try to keep them between 75 and 78 on the cool side. So it gets hot in my room. So I also have an AC that you might hear kicking on all the time, which is...
Oh, we haven't heard it at all.
Excellent. That's good. That's why I'm in this room and not the other one right next to the AC. So, but yeah, the heat does... it's hotter than most colubrids, for sure.
And it doesn't seem like one of those things to where, if I heat my snakes up to 90 degrees, they're all going to like regurge. It's going to have consequences. But it seems like you're able to range it as long as it's hot.
Right.
There seems to be a range.
As long as that one area that's at least as big as their body is 100 degrees, they're doing great. And they rarely hit that cool side in the 70s. But I mean, the temp goes off at night and it cools down in my room. I do have little 40-watt ceramic heat emitters for night that put a little bit of temp in there, because my rooms get down into without those, they would get into the low 60s. And they can deal with that, But I've just always had respiratory infections if I don't use ceramic heat emitters and keep it at around 70. And so other people that are successful at dropping it way low, I'm jealous, but I, I can't seem to do it without respiratory infections. So I just rather not. So
And is there any specific humidity requirements?
not particularly. So Australian stuff does fine at household humidity. The winter when it's really dry, I will mist their substrate just to keep them a little bit damp. Um, I run a humidifier in here, but it's Colorado. It's dry, man. And so I run a humidifier, and it's like 40% humidity here in my room. The Indonesian species need a lot higher humidities. The Irian Jaya is 60 to 70%. Um, the Halmaheras need around 80% humidity.
Wow.
The classic Indonesian species, or Gigas, the classic Indonesian blue tongue, around 70 to 80% would be a good target. The Merauques, they need around 70 or so as well. That's what this one is behind me. It's Merauke. And so she's got tons of moss, and I've got all the vents covered up, so she gets a little nice sauna. But everyone else is just totally chill. So that's what makes the Australian skinks so good for pets, because just most households are fine. You don't have to worry about humidity. If you can just reach a basking spot of 100 and 102, you're golden.
So can you explain a little bit of, obviously you just went through all the Indonesians, but can you explain a little bit the difference between like the northerns and I think there's centrals too, as far as the Australian skinks go?
Yeah, so there's several species. So there's the northern blue-tongued skink, which is the heaviest and girthiest. So that's your chubby tank. They reach approximately 2 feet total length, and they're the most available here in the United States, captive bred. They breed really well. They're really hardy animals. Then there's
And those
eastern
have
blue.
mutations, right? Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, they have, that's fine. They have visual traits. We try to not call them morphs or anything because they're more polygenic and line bred stuff. So you got like orange lines and white lines and dark lines and red lines. I think the most recent that come out was Magma, which is pretty cool. It's like a super orangey red, kind of a hue to them. It's as if you'd taken stain, like wood stain, and stained the animal. That's kind of what they look like. And those are expensive. Some of those suckers, a couple grand, can for a lizard is not cheap anyway. And then the easterns, they have more of your genetic traits. So that's your like albinos, melanistics, T positives. Most of those are in Australia and not in the United States. There are some here, and they were discovered after the importation ban. So
Wink, wink.
you can do the math on how.
Well, yeah, we keep
Wink,
carpets
wink.
and stuff. We know the deal.
How did this get here? I don't know. 10,000.
Magic.
So yeah, that's rough. There are some that they've been legally imported with paperwork. How they got to Hong Kong or Ukraine, Germany, or nobody knows. So, but prove innocent until proven guilty. America.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, these are, it's a mutation that's captive bred.
Right.
No, I don't condone it, but
I don't condone it either. I don't like the methodology of getting them out. Sometimes it's a little rough on the animal. I'm not a fan of the welfare issue.
right.
But at the same time, there is not a population of albino eastern blue-tongued skinks that is being decimated in Australia. We're not hurting the wild, period. Now, on the other hand, like you said, the Centralians, they don't have any identifiable morphs that I'm aware of, or at least genetic animals that I've seen. There might be an albino out there somewhere, but no one's really breeding them. But those individuals are my favorite and they're super rare in the United States. I only know of 3 legal ones, and our friend up in Michigan, who's another YouTuber, he has those. And I wish those would breed, and I want them badly. But those are amazing little skinks. Those are from the central part of the Australian outback, really, and they're one of the smaller little skinks, about half the size of an adult.
Really?
Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger, but they're just this little chubby striped tank, and their tongue comes out super fast compared to the others. It's just on overdrive. It's awesome. And there's Western blue tongue skinks that are found along the western side of Australia and into the southern central, I believe. There's blotched blue tongues, and there are westerns here in the U.S. That are being bred. I believe Great Basin Serpentarium, Joey, he just had a western born like 2 days ago. So cheers to that. That's awesome. There's blotched blue tongues, which are super cool too, and they're more. Well, there's an alpine version that could get really cold.
That's cool.
And, oh, they're wicked cool, and they have like really deep orange and black. They just look like a Halloween animal. Then there's also what else is there? Eastern. And there's the pygmy blue tongue, which nobody should have. They had them for sale in Germany, and those are absolutely smuggled. I'm gonna call that poached because they're super
that a
endangered.
very
They thought they
rare
were
animal?
extinct. Yeah, they thought they were extinct until like they found I think it was a mulga, one of the elapids in Australia. They captured it, and in its stomach was a pygmy blue tongue. So they're like, well, they're obviously not extinct if they're getting eaten. So they found them, and they're like breeding them now in the zoo and trying to get them up to a larger number, which is awesome. But those are super cool. They don't even really have a blue tongue. And then I think that's all of them. And then of course you got your shinglebacks, which look like pine cones. They're flipping off.
That is something to where if they were more readily bred and weren't like ridiculous amounts of money, that is such an interesting animal. That's something that I'd consider keeping.
Oh yeah, and the trouble with them is they only have like 1 or 2 offspring.
And they pair for life, right?
Yeah, they are pretty monogamous in that aspect. I mean, after a few beers, you might get running around, on a trip out in TDY, those military folks. Or they go to Vegas. But for the most part, they are monogamous, and that's pretty awesome. They will. I know some folks that have had trios, and so they do that. But yeah, they don't have that many babies, and that's one of the drawbacks if you're trying to breed them and get them up into big capacity. Kind of like
not very commercial, it's nothing to make money off of.
Like the monkey tails, they takes forever to get a baby.
Right. Now, sorry, I got us off topic with the shinglebacks, but those are fucking awesome.
It's still skinks.
Yeah, we're
so
still
awesome.
talking skinks. So,
That's right.
Indo species, what's the breeding season like in comparison to the Australian stuff?
Well, some of that's pretty mysterious. We haven't really figured out, me and the mouse in my pocket, most of the breeders haven't quite narrowed down all of the aspects of what it takes to ovulate and catch ovulation, and especially in the Indonesian specific, like the Name or the primary classic Indonesians and the Halmahera Indonesians. Joey again at Great Basin, he did breed the classic Indonesian blue tongues, I believe. Halmaheras, which is a locality that might actually someday be moved into a different complete species or subspecies, but for now it's still a locality of the Indonesian. I don't believe it's been actually bred in captivity in the United States, at least. People just can't figure it out.
Heavily imported animal.
It drives me nuts too, because it's heavily imported. It's epically cheap. It's one of the harder animals to keep simply because of the humidity, and it's the number one animal recently at shows, and so folks want a skink. There's no northerns available. There's no anything else. They go get a Halmahera. And some people get them because they're awesome, because they want a Halmahera, but most people just want a skink, and this will do. And then it ends up suffering, and people are struggling with the humidity. And it's just imported in massive droves, and people aren't breeding them because we just can't. And it's not that people aren't trying. There's lots of good breeders out there trying to get them to do it, and there's just nothing. It's not working. It sucks.
That does suck because that's what I had a Halmahera when I had one. Then I'm like, damn, I should have actually tried. I didn't know it was difficult.
You could have been a legend, man. Not that you wanted another reason.
Slipped right through my fingers.
That's right. Yeah, they're tough. I don't know.
Could you shed some light on? Oh, I hate when I say "on" like that. Sorry. Shed some light on the breeders, like the community of breeders within the skinks. Like we just know nothing about that.
Skink breeders are a pretty tight knit group. We're humans, so we have our share of drama, but it's nothing like the old Python Regis groups. Those fellers can't get along, but I'm grateful to say I'm a part of because they've been very welcoming to let me into the community. They're a great group of people. They love their animals. Most all of them are just doing it because they love the animals, and they would do it if they couldn't sell any of their animals. And they would be that crazy cat lady kind of person with just rows and rows of blue tongues if nobody bought them. In fact, Ray Gerge is that crazy cat lady. I love you, Ray. He has so many because he just loves them, not because he can't get rid of them. Because he's like, I'm going to keep this one as a holdback. He looks at him. That's a holdback litter. And the breeders really are a pretty close-knit group. We support one another right now because the skinks are a hot ticket. There's like zero competition. It's just like, I'm out, go buy over here. I'm out, go buy over here. There's very little aggression or bickering or any of that. There's always some because there's people, but that's about it. Most of the breeders, like I said, are just kind of hobbyists. They would be considered hobbyists, and just do it in our basement or our garage or back room or whatever. Very few commercial folks.
Like it seemed like it was probably like 2014 or something is when they started like going crazy because people were obviously promoting them. But it doesn't seem like supply ever really caught up to that demand since then, because it doesn't seem like anyone's really, besides Ray Gerge, I'm sure, but
right.
He seems to be very successful, but I don't know anyone else who's very successful.
It's hit and miss with them. This year I had a phenomenal year, but it varies between, I had a female have 15 babies, I had a female have 2. And then 2 years prior, the female had 13, that same female that had 2. So it waxes and wanes. And probably next year she'll have 14 or something crazy like that. So it's kind of hard to gauge like what an average clutch size is going to be or litter size will be. And supply has been slow, mainly because it's violent. It takes a lot of work because you can't just throw them together and walk away. You have to actually like be there and watch it, which is just not because you're kinky, but because you literally,
because you have to make sure they stay alive.
Yes, because you don't want them to bite each other's arms off, and you actually want to see a good copulation. We've had males, they'll nick a hemipene with a claw, so you want to try and watch out for that. I got a have a buddy who he has one of his males had a hemipene like nicked off, like chopped off, like bobbit style, and it's terrible for this lizard. I can't imagine watching that, but it's violent even then, and that all went well, if you can imagine. So a lot of people, unlike snakes, where you could just like throw them in there. Although it sounds like your palmetto male doesn't play nice. He's like freaked
Psycho.
out with girls.
Well, like it's like king snakes though. Like we need to watch the king snakes, but the thing is, the king snakes have recurved teeth. They bite the female, pretty straightforward. They hang on. With a skink, they have those serrated teeth that are made for ripping. So it's like it seems like a
Yeah.
disaster.
Well, they just have that super powerful jaw is really what it is, and then they seem smart, they look smart, but they're not smart. They're not smart. They're dumb as rocks, and they will go and bite, and an overzealous male will just bite, and he'll break bones. I had a male that almost had his like orbital bone crushed by another female when she just whipped around and said, "I got a headache," and wham, and it was over for them that night. And it's just, yeah, it's violent, and it also takes a little bit of time. Plus, you can't sex them very easily, so you can't sell sexed skinks that well. So that's a little challenge. So you have to buy like four and hope for the best. That's what I recommend anyway. If someone wants to go out and be a breeder, just go buy four babies and that are unrelated and hope for a nice ratio. Plus, males got to be in the mood. I don't know what it is with some male skinks, but they're all particular. And you put him in with a female, and he's like, no, I don't want to. And that just ruins everything because she's not gonna go. She's all in the mood. She's waggling her tail and everything, and he's just like, meh. And it sucks. So it's a challenge, and I think that's part of why they haven't got the supply to meet the demand yet. I don't know.
Because you're swimming upstream a little bit with it seems.
Yeah, and it still keeps a lot of popularity with folks because they've realized, wow, this is a cool lizard, this is a cool pet. It's pretty simple. I can be very successful in keeping this animal alive if I could get one, and so people are all about it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and this is something that we got you off course, but Australians. So do you have to like brumate or anything for breeding?
Some do. The more temperate stuff, I brumate. You don't technically have to brumate the northerns at all. I do because it syncs them all on the same page. That way, they're all in the just on the natural cycle together. So I'll take the northerns and brumate them at room temp, and that's easy.
Okay.
But the easterns have to be a lot colder, and so same with the blotched blue tongues, which are those alpine. Some of them are alpine and they're higher elevation. So it varies, if you will. But the
Do you
northerns are
feed
like the
during that
easiest.
period?
No, I cut off food in November, and then I just turn off the heat, and then I give them down to 4 hours of light a day, and so they'll get 4 hours of light a day through November, the whole month of November, into about mid-December. And the northerns are actually like winter breeders, so they live in I mean, it's a tropical environment up there in northern Australia and in the Northern Territory, so it's not that cold, and so they're still out and about and moving around. That's when they breed. So they breed together um, in December, January for the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, they're doing it the opposite, obviously. But and so yeah, I throw them together in December, and that's this year I threw them earlier than normal, and that's when I had my best year ever. So I'm gonna start doing them in December instead of January. But worked
Cool.
out. Yeah.
And how do you exactly, once you have babies, you were talking about, it seems like you set up babies in racks?
I do. I do. I have them all in like V18 racks.
And then
Yeah.
you were saying it's kind of a pain in the ass to get babies started.
Well, they're easy to eat. It's just that they eat almost every day. And so like I have these baby Antaresia, like the Stimson's pythons and the baby pygmy pythons, and we were talking about how like you gotta assist feed them a little bit sometimes, and you're like, oh man, that's a lot of work, and not compared to baby skinks, because baby skinks eat every single day, and they poop every single day. So you wait 2 days on a baby skink, and they have like pooped twice, ran through it, paper mache the entire sides of their tub, hit the ceiling, spun around. I mean, I tell you, these little rascals are the messiest little boogers. I think they think it's fun. I mean, part of me would be, if I really was an anthropomorphic type of guy and I thought they had personalities, I think they were screwing with me just to play. But yeah, so feeding them every day, and it's no big deal if you have 10 or 20, but when you're dealing with, like, this year I had 68 babies, and so it's a lot of little foods and little poops, and each one of them needs attention and needs that time, and it takes a little bit of work to just, it's monotonous, but you get through it. It's
Is there
way
a
different
certain
than
amount of
for a snake.
is there a certain amount of time? So like for us, it'd be like 5 meals in a row. That's an established baby. It's ready for sale. Is there some type of window there for a baby skink?
I I like to do 3 weeks. I just want to know that they are eating well. They've gone through their first shed. They usually shed in their first week. So once they're about 7 days old, they shed, and then you can tell like what they're gonna, kind of a little bit what they're gonna look like, and um, they do pretty well with with about a week. But I prefer 3 weeks because it just, I don't know, it feels better. They're more girthy. They're less timid. They get really squirmy, and things can go south on a baby really early. So I do 3 weeks with them. So that's 3 weeks of 21 days of 21 meals and 21 poops and each. And so it takes a little bit. Like, baby season is my busiest season. There is just nothing gets scheduled. I don't go to movies. I don't get to go out. My wife hates baby season because I just live down here outside of work. But I mean, they're cute little farts. So
And are you vending shows mostly or selling them mostly online?
I do all online. I'm kind of hypochondriac or like paranoid about shows because I don't know. I like shows. I think they're great. I am just super paranoid about taking any animal from my collection to be
Out into
around
the world.
oh man, and there's other people and other people with reptiles, and their reptiles could have the cooties, um, more so like mites and crypto and volcanoes and death and earthquakes and tornadoes, and it just goes in my head that I can't do the expo with my critters. I
I
yet
understand it. It's definitely, yeah, I get it.
I, I mean, if I had the guts, or I had a quarantine room that would be like, all right, you guys are going, like a quarantine room that's specifically for expos, you know what I mean? Like, I could be like, all right, this is the expo room. Things can go through here until you go out. But I panic about it because I've been to some expos where I'm pretty sure that the guy was vending dead animals, or like soon to be dead animals.
Oh, we've 100% seen it.
And it's like, I don't want you to hold cute little squiggly whatever and then come hold my animal. And I don't want to be the guy that goes, no, you can't touch it until you buy it. Because I've been that kid that wants to do that, and then I feel like very insulted when a vendors are like, no, you can't touch it till you buy it, kind of thing. I'm like, well, and I don't want to be that guy, so I do all online for now. Who knows? Maybe if FedEx like stops shipping or something, and I'll be screwed. I'll have to do it. But for now, it's all online, thankfully.
Right. And as far as shipping, I know our window that we don't ship is usually like November to January, February. But considering how hot you have to keep them, is your
and you're also in Colorado.
Yeah. So
which
is your window that you don't ship fairly large?
It's larger than most places. It's not as small as like Arizona, where you can ship like September 1st to September 2nd. I'm just kidding, but it's so hot there. Like you take your skink outside and it dies of heating so much. But no, I ship generally right at baby season. It's just starting to be warm enough in Colorado. I usually a lot of the times I'll do a heat pack, or cryo pack phase 22s. You know the little switcheroo thingies. But most of the time they're okay because they can handle that cool temperature shortly. If it's as long as it's going to be 50 or above, I'm okay with shipping as far as the low goes for the most part. I did have 2 weeks ago. I had 2 weeks ago. Great weather, Colorado, 70 degrees outside. Pack them up, take them to FedEx, ship them off, and then the temperature drops like 30 degrees and it's snowing and the freaking airport closes. And I am freaking out. Like we had 9 babies stuck in Denver airport. I was losing my mind. Thankfully, all of them are fine. They all made it to their houses. That's the cool thing about like when you're shipping for the most part. If you're shipping hub to hub, which is the only thing I do now, like it's pretty legit. It's minimal time. Most places are really good, and kudos to FedEx for doing that. So,
yeah, I can imagine not having that option or doing Delta Dash or something. You know, I was never around during those days. Luckily, I guess.
Oh, Delta, yeah, I used to know them very well. I still every once in a while have done Delta with Gilas because you got to do venomous through them. But gosh, that was another reason I was like I can't do Gilas because then you got to build a box. You got to make wooden boxes every time. Could you imagine like doing that on a commercial scale? I don't know.
And it's not even like the animals are more well in Gilas it is. The animals are, pretty valuable, but if you're doing that for like a gaboon viper that you sold for $125 every time, I mean,
that would
is
drive
it
me
really
nuts.
worth it?
Yeah, right. Plus the liability of the guy's gonna
plus people's lives. Yeah, that's
yeah. Someone's gonna free handle it and lose an arm. No big deal. Sue you. You didn't tell me. But yeah, I'm grateful that I can still ship here and Reptiles Express and Ship Your Reptiles and Reptiles to You and all those good companies. I'm really glad they are out there and they have all the supplies. It makes it just so much easier for like small time. I'm like, cheers, guys. Good work.
Yeah, for sure, making it all possible for real.
Yeah, big time.
You still keep some Gilas?
I do. I love them, and it's the only thing legal in Colorado. Because obviously, I guess other things are dangerous or something.
Well, I try to get a hog nose there, and you would think, I don't know.
Oh man, yeah,
I think it was a gaboon viper.
Yeah, seriously, you can't have hognose anymore. Mm-hmm. Although on the Fish and Wildlife thing, it says you can collect for, but you can't own them. So I don't know what you're doing with them after you've collected them. I guess you have to juggle them.
What does that
for entertainment purposes?
I don't know. But technically, I guess they say you can't have any venomous snakes. So is a garter snake venomous? I've heard that's venomous sometimes, and it's like, oh, well, come on, guys. But anyway, yeah, hognose, they don't let you. You certainly can't buy one or sell one. That will cost you a good, ticket or jail time or something. I don't know. Yeah, that stinks. But the Gilas, since there's never been a recorded death, Mark Seward, who's like the Gila dude, who literally wrote the book on Gilas, he lives in Colorado and his whole thing. So I think he had a lot of impact and input when they like, you cannot have venomous snakes. If it's got legs, good. So sweet.
And it's like most of the time they would never even consider anything like that. Like, they would barely even know what a Gila was. They would probably just say no venomous animals, or
Right.
And then they'd say no poisonous amphibians or no poisonous reptiles.
reptiles.
Reptiles. Seriously, that's what they would do. That's I love those laws. I want to test those laws. I'm like poisonous reptiles, so I can't have that Asian tiger snake. Is that what I can't have?
They had the graphic design people write those laws.
Oh, totally, totally. But yeah, I do keep Gilas. I love them. I'm hoping someday that I will breed them. It's my plan. Um, I'm super paranoid about putting them down for brumation because every once in a while something doesn't go right in brumation. I don't want to lose one of my babies, and so I'm all scared. But eventually I'll brumate them and hopefully see if they can't knock boots and make some eggs and stuff and make some baby little lizards come out of
So
there.
you just have a pair?
Right now, and then I'm planning to get more because I do want to breed them because I feel if I have more, then I could take the loss and cry through it less than if I had just the two, which is terrible, but it's a reality because we've lost amazing animals. When we were at the zoo and you had like all of the stuff you'd ever need, you still lose something sometimes because the stuff doesn't go right, and that's what's scary about living critters as opposed to like dealing in cars or something.
Yeah, especially, that's where I guess it gets squirrely for all of us, right? When we have to sell, and like sell is kind of in quotations because like you don't want to sell too much, you want to qualify the buyer, but you also need to move animals, and you can't disqualify every buyer, so it's
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I like have dragged my feet on the Gilas too, is because it's like I don't want to necessarily sell a venomous animal to someone. I used to, but I was also way more bold when I lived in another state. When I had a license, and I was selling rattlesnakes, but I was selling everything to zoos. Everything I had either went to a zoo or a super experienced keeper, and so I was very relaxed about it. But these days, it's like, man, I don't know. How would you like those hot shows where you can go and like an 18-year-old can pick up a monocle cobra?
you should come to Hamburg, man. It's so
No, you should not. No, you should
I
not.
have an anxiety attack and I'd probably punch somebody. Um, and I don't know what your laws are in punching people, but here in Denver, it's illegal. So I can't do that. But,
it's just frowned upon here, I'm sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, hey, let's do it.
Yeah.
But no, I used to go to the Texas venomous shows, and they'd be like, well, I had a guy lie to my face at a show, lie to my freaking face. He told me he had some midget faded rattlesnakes, my favorite species of reptile, hands down, period, ever. If they were legal, I would have a warehouse full of them. Um, and for no other reason than just my own enjoyment, I would be that crazy cat lady. But these things, I love them. And he had two of them on his table. And I said, where did you get these CBB, or captive born and bred midget fadeds? And he opens a magazine article and he shows it to me. He says, the guy that wrote this sent it to me from Europe. And he holds me, it's the Reptilia magazine. And the dumbass was showing me my article. I wrote that damn article. I know for sure as hell I didn't
That you
send
didn't
him
send it
shit.
to him. Oh my god.
And so I was like, is this really happening? Like, what's going on in my head? I'm like, is this really happening? Is this guy that dumb? Or am I this lucky? What do I do? You know?
Oh,
And so I showed him my license. I was like,
that's
really?
me, dude.
Really? I sent those to you. God, I don't remember that. And he like walked away. And so I went and got the owner or the head guy of the show, and he called Fish and Wildlife or Texas Parks and Wildlife or whatever that is, and I don't know what happened after that, but I have such a distrust of folks now after he showed like bold lied, like he's trying to like validate it because anyone else would have been like, oh okay, because we know a lot of rare rattlesnakes got sent to Europe, bred up there, made illegal here, and then brought back captive bred and they're legal, and that really did happen. So it's a legit lie, I guess. Legit lie? Is that even such a thing? But anyway, oh man. So I've been to Texas shows, and that's what happened at my last Texas show. Or not, that was several years ago. Many, many years ago, actually. But.
Well, hopefully no one's trying to use your name or your article in that way anymore.
No. I'm sure people have long forgot about that article.
So were you mainly, like, when you were in Texas, were you very focused on keeping and breeding venomous?
Yeah, I was keeping and breeding rare rattlesnakes. That was my thing. So, I mean, back then it was midget fadeds, Grand Canyons. So I had abyssus, I had concolor, I had lepidus and clobberi, and some hopies that were like high pink hopies, the nuntus. It's a stunted form of the prairie rattlesnake that's super pink looking. It got a really cool hue to it. So I was breeding those, and those were my favorites. I loved that stuff. Still do. If it was legal, oh man, it would be on. Like Donkey Kong, man.
Would your wife be cool with it?
I don't care. I'm just kidding.
Kind of.
She's actually really kind of, yeah. It's half kidding. She's really cool about it, and I think she would, is because she trusts me. Like I was like religious, super religious about locks and protocols, and coming from an AZA thing, and I'd worked in a venomous lab at the university, so we were like all about protocols. You free handle that thing, and boy, I'm gonna punch you in the face, kind of thing. No offense to, well, yeah, actually offense. If you're a free handler, take your offense.
Right.
Yeah. So, I wonder what the comments will say about that. But anyway.
Who's like, I always wonder, how is like the best way to get started in keeping venomous snakes?
A lot of people say, they used to say when I was getting started, they say go get a racer, or go get a rat snake that's wild caught, or go get a coach whip or something of that nature. But those only work for like lapids if you're going to work with cobras and stuff like that. So, and they don't necessarily translate. You could have super docile coach whip. I've never seen one, but they're probably out there. So really, it's to hang out with other keepers, I think. I mean, wouldn't you? You like just watch someone, let someone who knows what they're doing mentor you, talk through it, lots of observation, maybe some hands-on that's coached. I think that would probably be the safest go around. I mean, obviously, just hours of Steve Irwin would probably not be the best. I love Steve, but not your greatest how-to videos, as far as handling. Plus, Steve, he was great, but his stuff was produced. Some of it was produced, and that's not a bad thing.
They were all planted.
Right.
Most of those animals.
Right, and like the Arizona episodes, many of those animals, you hear the rattle, but you can visually see it's not rattling. And I'm not knocking Steve. He's one of my heroes. I love the guy. I straight up know that when they produce stuff, they were like cooling the animal to make sure it was docile. He had a lot of knowledge about it, of course, but then he knew what he was doing, and he never really took a risk that was exceptional with those, it seemed. But some kid would think, oh, well, then I can go do that, or some grown adult would think I could go do that, and it's not the same when you're, it's 98 degrees out and you found a Western Diamondback and you're going to do the same thing. Good luck.
Yeah.
Statistic.
Yeah, for sure. I remember one of my favorites is, I think he's at he may be in Fort Polk or something, which is in Louisiana, which is in the butthole of the country. And he found a pygmy and he scooped it up. And then one of the soldiers was coming and he's like, "Oh, look at this, mate." And he flipped it over into his fucking hand, this pygmy rattler. And then the guy, just this soldier who has no reptile experience. It just holding this fucking pygmy straight up in his hand. I was freaking out.
I know. I was like, I guess he weighed the consequences of like venom yield, body weight. He's like, this will just put the guy in like the ER for a couple hours. Although it would be worse, but it could be worse. But that's totally, yeah. I couldn't believe some of the stuff, but he was good. But I was a part of this new show, Wild Jobs, on Discovery or on Animal Planet, and they were shooting the pilot here in Colorado, and they needed a rattlesnake, and they didn't have a rattlesnake, and they needed a wrangler, and neither was coming around, but I had a bull snake. So I go out and they literally video edited the whole thing with a bull snake that I've helped this guy catch. That's my pet right over here. That and it was a cool thing that when they did it all, but he looked at me and goes, dude, you need to get a little more animated. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you need to be like, oh my gosh, it's a rattlesnake. Because I was like, hey, there's a rattlesnake right over there, which it was a bull snake, so I wasn't really excited anyway. And it was my pet. But yeah, everything's produced. Everything is produced. It's sad, but it's entertainment, and that's what it is. But I love Steve anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a weird balance between, and then I'm sure you see that on YouTube too, as far as you have to be on your channel, you're pretty straightforward and factual, which I try to be as well. But then you could see that other channels do better when you're animated. Like, that's what makes sense. If you're on TV or something, of course the producers want you to be animated because that's good TV. We're just nerds who like to talk about snakes, and yeah, we understand that only 8,000 people are going to listen to you and I.
Right.
But that's fine with us. But
right. I would do things completely different if the goal was subscribers. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for every person that subscribed, but the goal is not subscribers. It's about the integrity of the channel. It's about and not that sensationalized content is not integrity. It just has a different goal, and that's it. And I had a consultant look at my channel because I was like, why is stuff going so slow? Besides the fact that I really needed help. But he goes, dude, you need to take all your little thumbnails and you need to convey emotion. So take your little picture of yourself doing something amazing, and whatever it is, and cut it out and put it on the thing. And then when you get to your little editing thing, make every color pop, as poppy as you can make it without it looking ridiculous. I was like, why? He's like, because the yellow needs to be the most yellow. The red needs to be the most red. Because when people are scrolling down, they're going to choose what they pick based on what they see. And if you fade into the background, you're going to get scrolled right on by.
You better be the brightest clown in that motherfucker.
Exactly. Be the brightest clown with the biggest nose and the biggest feet. And I've tried to do that without, I really can't get past that hurdle of sensationalism. I don't want to do my bloody hand, my skink beat me and my fingers are gone, or largest thing ever. Everything's the biggest, the brightest, the bestest. Gag me, man. I love that stuff. I understand it, but it drives me.
Well, we should appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah,
it's
you just appreciate it.
And not exactly information educational based, but
right. And I didn't join YouTube to get a YouTube following. I joined YouTube because I really actually it was because I got tired of typing in the forums and I thought, man, I could just make a video. It'd be so much easier. Which was not the truth.
People still ask you questions from videos you made, don't they?
Oh my gosh.
They only ask you questions from videos you made, I think.
Right. Exactly. It's like, man, I shouldn't have made that video because then everyone would know. But now they all have just questions because now they don't know. It's like I told them what they don't know instead of telling them, helping educate. So yeah, it's sometimes it's like, yeah, why do they ask a bit? They do ask questions, and that's what it's for. That's what it's for. Some days I'm like, why does this have to be this way? But it's because it is, and that's okay.
So what made you, I mean, obviously you said like education, but what's really, or what do you plan to do in the future with your YouTube channel?
I don't know. My goal is not to quit. That's my goal. I know that's a very low goal, but actually it seems very high on my bar right now. Um, because I like communicating to people about skinks, about my animals. Um, as long as there's questions people have or a topic that's something I might be able to feel like I have some input that could be of value, I want to continue to do that. As soon as I can't figure out content and there's no questions to be answered or that I feel I can make a positive contribution to, then I think I'm done. And it's not because I'm not doing YouTube to YouTube. It's there's a means or a goal in mind, and the goal is to help my customers and other fellow herpers or reptile people have an additional resource. It's not the resource, but it's a resource, and it can help people, even if it's a not what not to do. But I hope it's a what to do. But if I could put that out there and it helps, then that's great. But if I've covered all the bases, then I don't need to make content to make content, if that makes sense. So I do hope to share some things coming in the future. We're hoping to go to Australia. Like hoping as in we bought the tickets, so we better be going. Uh, and I've got some really great YouTube friends and some folks that we're gonna meet up with and do some interesting stuff. But I want it to always be an added value of education, not just entertainment. Not that entertainment's bad. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I think it's cool that we have obviously people reaching the masses, but then once they watch one of their videos on a skink, you may be a related video somewhere down the line, or they dig a little bit deeper and they get to, you're like the second or third layer where it's like, that person's serious and they're really, really into it.
Exactly. I'm totally cool being somebody's like high school science teacher, not Bill Nye. You know what I mean? Like I'm totally cool later down the line being the guy that just helps them walk through. Oh, that's what you could do about humidity, or okay, I see now. That's why the temperature needs to be that way. I really just want people's animals to be successful because I believe that the better people have a success with their pets, then the better an experience is going to be, not only for them but as a hobby as a whole. Because what's good for the individual is good for the entire group, simply because then the people that are out to get us, there's folks out there that don't want us doing any of this. They have less ammo. I want to just make them completely pointless. They're already pretty much pointless, but they don't know it yet. I'm trying to figure out how to help them with that.
What a nice guy. So I feel like we kind of have the same idea as far as with corn snakes. I don't care about breeding the next morph and stuff. I have all the cool morphs and stuff to play with, right? But it's really about, I want to give as many looks in the snake so people can get interested in different ways. And the fact is that the same thing that you see in the skinks, as far as that's a much easier animal to keep, I feel the same way about corn snakes are, to me, 20 times easier than keeping a ball python, in my opinion. And you're going to have keepers who have a very positive experience with it. So I want to educate them in order to be like a steward of the species that's the easiest and best to keep, because at the end of the day, the more successful you are with the animal, if I can just feed it dog food instead of having UV and all that, like, they're going to be successful. They're going to have a good experience, and it's going to perpetuate positivity into the hobby.
Exactly. That's right where I'm at, man. I think we're on the same page. Corn snakes are fantastic snakes. Oh my gosh, I had corn snakes growing up as well, and I think it is the staple first beginner aside from ball pythons.
But it's not anymore. That's what makes me mad.
Yeah,
People don't even know. Like, I'll go to a reptile show, people don't even know what they are. It's like, what?
That's true. I can't even fathom that that's not the common go-to animal, which like it blows my mind. But because of ball pythons, which I don't hate ball pythons at all. I love my ball pythons. They've done amazing things. It's it is the big ticket item these days, and it's kind of sad because there's so many other reptiles.
And that's what those guys, since there's more people breeding them and stuff like that, I mean, they're going to market them the best because there's more of them, and just that became the number one pet.
Yep. And ball pythons, like, it's a miracle that I have my 30-year-old ball python, because I was 8 years old. My dad didn't know anything about reptiles, and I've got this ball python. It is just a straight up miracle that he's still around, because they're not the easiest to keep. They go on hunger strikes. There's humidity issues with shedding, and there's stress issues, and it's not like a corn snake. Once a corn snake's feeding, you can say, I don't know, because I'm not like a super corn snake person, but man, it's like an unstoppable beast. It's just going to live forever as long as you just keep doing it. And you get everything right. And they're so forgiving, and they're good handleable animals for the most part. Not every one of them. Some of them are a little, but most of them are just rock stars. And that's kind of why I wanted to do skinks, because I think skinks are the corn snake of lizards, more so than bearded dragons, because they don't need as much involvement. They don't need an elaborate issue. They're more forgiving. A blue tongue fed dog food with vitamin D3 supplement can live on any type of, well, not any type of substrate. Can't put it on thumbtacks, but an average reptile substrate that's not kelpie sand, you should be fine. Cypress mulch, like, it's so easy. Once you get things dialed in, they just go and they live. And that's what corn snakes do too. Ball pythons do eventually, if you know what you're doing. But
it's just people freak out, I feel, more than anything else. They freak out when they stop eating or have a bad shed, and then it's crisis.
Me too. Man, I've kept so many like rare things and like hard to keep animals in the zoo and at home. Like, I was ready for something that's just gonna live. I just want something that's gonna eat, because I run into the skink room or the reptile room and peek and hope that it's still alive. I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling. and I could relate to that for a lot of people, because they panic on ball pythons. But I've panicked on ball pythons before too. Little rascals sometimes don't eat.
Yeah, that's for sure. And let's talk about other things that don't eat. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that you bred pygmy pythons or anthill pythons.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm way excited. These tiny little snake worms that I've got, I'm so pumped. They haven't eaten yet, but that's okay. They haven't even shed their first shed. But the Stimson's ones are a little small or a little bigger, but they haven't eaten on their own yet either. Um, I'm gonna start with a few more tricks, but yeah, these little guys, the pygmy pythons, from the most part, I think you have to assist feed them, unless you have the, I guess, little tiny baby geckos that you could feed regularly, which is not going to happen. But I'm not an Antaresia expert, like, at all. Like, I bought a pair, I put them together, they did their thing. got eggs, and just like 2 days ago, the little buggers popped out, and I am so excited. I They're really small, like holy crap small. Like I'm trying to figure out. I have to buy probably smaller mice to get a smaller tail to assist feed them. They're so tiny. Um, but yeah, that's super fun. I'm prepared for that, considering I've worked with like mountain kings and stuff that get just they're little finicky boogers, lizard feeders, and they're little when they have that ontogenetic diet shift from lizards to rodents and from baby to adult. That's just a booger of a problem. But you were saying that you baked or boiled an anole stew or something that worked.
Yeah, which I don't know if that I heard the Antaresia in particular are more attracted to geckos more so than anoles, so that may be
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. And so I'm hoping that I think there's a gecko scent that Reptilinks makes. I've just heard someone had just mentioned it on one of the Antaresia uh, forums. They said they had some success with their Stimsons on it. So I'm going to grab that and give that a try. And yeah, at least for now, I think most Antaresia folks help or assist feed for quite a while until the little guys are beefed up enough to. I mean, I can't. Even fathom the idea of even a teeniest pink going into that little thing. I mean, they're this long. I mean, how in the heck is a
So
pinky gonna get
TC's
that?
like basically that's the space between his pointer finger and his thumb. Like that's probably like 5 inches or so, less than that. Oh, someone may be calling him. We lost him
Yep,
again for a
there we go.
second.
I'm back. My dad
Dad.
again. He's calling. He's persistent.
So it's probably like 5 inches or so. Like,
Yeah, I mean the thing is teeny. I mean itty bitty. I could get one real quick. You want to see it?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's go get one.
So if you guys don't know, pygmy pythons or the anthill python are the smallest python species in the world. So that's why it's super cool, and I would assume super hard to get them to eat stuff. But you should see an adult will pretty much fit in the palm of your hand. It's crazy. Um,
All right, there he is. Can you see it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much a baby corn snake.
I mean he's about, mm, and I'm a little person, so I there he is. He's just a little guy, maybe 6 inches, probably. Let's see. He's the length of my iPhone 7.
And very, very busy pattern.
It is. They look a lot like children's pythons with all the spots and stuff. Once they're older, they really fade away. Um, and then
Because
they're
the
just
ones I've seen were like predominantly brick red.
yeah, that's what mom and dad look like. They're like just brick red little boogers. Let me put him back real quick. Hey, good buddy.
Yeah, but that's a super, super awesome species of, I mean, obviously a very, very one of a kind python.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I They're my favorite. They're like my Australian version of the midget faded rattlesnake in my head. At least I don't know. I made that connection, and now I love them. That's all I needed. So
Great. And you have some other Antaresia. You have Stimsons as well.
I have Stimsons. They're Eastern Stimsons, and they just bred. I had 6 babies born, and they're doing great. Um, and I love them. My favorites are the Wheat Belt. It's a locality of Stimson's python called the Wheat Belt Stimsons, Western Stimsons, and they are spectacular. They have like a red. Their pattern is like a brick red with like a golden wheat color. Maybe that's because of the wheat belt, but I think it's something else. But I think they're gorgeous. I really want some. I just saw. Excuse me. I just saw someone breed them or just had eggs in Europe, and unfortunately, because they're Australian, I don't know if we can get them right now from Europe. But
Oh, so there's no one in the U.S. with them?
I believe Australian Addictions has some Western Stimsons. Uh, Justin Julander, and I think he's in Utah. I think he has some Western Stimsons, so I might have to hit him up too. That's where my pygmies are from, so I'll have to pester him for some. Yeah, they're very uncommon. That specific locality of West or like the wheat belt or Western Stimsons, super super rare, like on the rare side of rare. So yeah, totally want them though.
So is there any reason why you went towards that particular genus?
Um, I like I like pythons. I just find these little snakes fun. They're like to me they look like a little miniature. I mean, I don't know, a miniature olive python or something, like on micro scale. So, and I like to be able to keep animals well with as much space as I can provide them. That's appropriate. Um, I don't need to just give space to give space if they don't appreciate it, but if there is some sort of value added to the animal, and I like small stuff. I don't have a ton of space in my setup, and so yeah, I think the small size to have a python. I also breed rosy boas. I love rosy boas, and the small stuff.
For
So
some reason, the it seems like the like head shape, kind of the body shape, is very similar between like the Antaresia and the rosy. But for some reason, I can see that connection.
oh yeah, I mean, I got my live birth, and I get to play with eggs on the other side, and so um, and they're both once they're feeding, they're like little monsters. You just little machines. You put a mouse in front of them, eats. Mouse, eat. Rodent, eat. Boom. Sometimes you put your finger that smells like a rodent, and they will try to eat it too. And um, I'm in love with the smaller stuff because I can keep them well, and I want to be able to keep stuff well. I don't want big stuff crammed in little spaces. Or even medium stuff crammed in moderate spaces. I just like to have um, enough room for them. It's a mental thing with me. There's no real facts behind it other than I like to see space. That's all.
Yeah, no, I went through the same decision making process with I still have some pythons, but I mean, I have one olive python because it's like I can maybe figure out how to make this work for one giant snake, but I don't even know if I want another. But rosy boas, are you into locality or morse?
A little bit of both. Like right now, I'm breeding a pure locality morph. It's one of the only ones out there, which is the Pioneer Town Anatharistic rosy boa. I love locality as well. I had some Rosarios. I had um, the Limburg albinos, which isn't really, I mean, it's a Temecula-ish area, but I don't believe it had a true locality. But these pioneer towns were straight up locality pie towns. And they were actually, what's cool about the Antaresia, they came from a wild collected pair that were normal wild type, bred together, produced an Antaresia like produced in captivity, which is super cool. And then they've been kept pure from a few dedicated breeders, and of course anything beyond like F2, people are like it's not locality anymore, and obviously, but you can't look at the wild and see your constant source. That's only 2 generations out, so um, they're technically more than F2. So for those pure hardcore locality guys, yeah, they're just a morph. Sorry, guys. But other,
There's those guys who, by the way, I want to clarify. If you start line breeding, all of a sudden it's not locality anymore for
right,
whatever reason.
right.
I don't get it, but
I can see their like I
I
understand.
guess,
I
yeah.
get it because they like it doesn't represent the wild anymore.
It has to look like shit for them to like it.
Right. Right.
How dare you breed the best looking snake you can make?
Right. So it's like if I just take them and put them all together and just, okay, now breed and close my eyes, then it's wild again. I understand that. But I understand locality folk and that way. But obviously, you absolutely cannot continually take from the wild to continue to only have F2s. You know, you just can't do that. It's not logical. It's not like my Australian blue tongue skinks are all of a sudden from Bangkok. You know, they're still from Australia. They're still, but I can totally see why some Australians have said, like with the blue tongues, like as people have been line breeding them for specific traits, they're like, it doesn't even look like a northern anymore. And I would agree, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so I understand that. But yeah, I love the rosy boas. I have some mountain springs, I have some pioneer towns, and then I have the Antaresia pioneer towns, which I love so much because they are purple. At least they look purple in my eyes. Someone else might have a different color palette, but
Melissa
I
always
love them.
gets on me that we call too many things in the hobby purple that are not, or lavender is the one
Lavender,
we
yeah.
use a lot. She's like, that is not in any way purple or lavender.
I feel like mine are close. I don't know. Maybe they're not. I don't know. They have baby blue eyes and they look lavenderish gray. As they get older, they look more gray. But
Well, I'm
to me, they're
sold
lavender.
already, man. With blue eyes, and
Oh,
if
it's
they look
gorgeous.
purple to you, they'll probably look purple to me.
Probably, yeah. If you like purple, then they look purple. Yeah, they're pretty cool little guys. I'm a big fan of those over the other antares that seem to have a lot more blue to them. In the because there's a Borrego Annery and there's a Morongo Valley Exanthic, and that's a pretty cool rosy boa too, and they're all absolutely stunning. I would have all of them. I would be out of control if I won the lottery. It would be a reptile palooza. It'd be great.
So we have reached 2 hours, and you need to call your dad back.
Oh man, I do.
So, if anyone wants to reach out for you or reach out to you, and where can they find you?
You can find me at ReptileMountain.com. My email is on the front page and the contact. You can also find me on YouTube, of course, ReptileMountain.tv. I had an Instagram. I was a little addicted to it, so I needed to take a break from it. Still have one, but don't go looking for it right now because it won't be up. And I think, and then Facebook. I'm Reptile Mountain on Facebook, and you can
Sweet.
get me there. Yeah.
And as for me, because Melissa got too hot because it's 80 degrees in here now because we had to turn the AC off to record.
Ouch.
Yeah, right. PortCityPythons.com, PortCityPythons on Instagram, YouTube, all of that good stuff. All the stuff we said in the beginning. See you guys at Carpet Fest. I can't wait. It will be a fun time. TC, thank you for hanging out with us.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, guys. We will see you next week.